Hello, YouTube! Resident Evil Requiem came out recently, right? I haven't played it, but I've been watching Markiplier's playthrough of it. Great game. Looks very fantastic. I have a few friends that are really big into it. But Resident Evil Requiem fixed yellow paint. And that's something that I was actually noticing while watching the playthrough of Mark's video. You could almost not even notice the yellow paint, but it still pulled your attention without making it look like a jarring, annoying thing. So let's go take a look at what their thoughts are on this. Really? Guys, I think the channel's name is DX.
Capcom is on a generational run right now. Their output over the last 10 years in terms of both quality and quantity has been an anomaly across the industry. But what many don't know about is how seriously Capcom takes user feedback and how paramount it's been in their ability to consistently satisfy players. In addition to housing project management juggernauts like Jun Takeuchi and veteran creatives like Koshi Nakanishi, the company's success is also due in large part to extensive testing, detailed postmortems, and fan surveys used to gauge what players think needs improvement in their games.
Unlike a lot of companies nowadays who put out a game and are like, oh, this game is a masterpiece, it's great. What do you mean that nobody wants to play our game? What do you mean the people are complaining about the looks of the characters or the way the gameplay is? They must not know anything. The players are wrong. The players know nothing. We're going to bitch and moan, and our game just got shut down. Shit. Yeah, that's pretty much the gaming industry as a whole right now. Capcom is an outlier, and please never change. Please never change. And that's the thing that the games company need to do. They need to know they have an audience they need to appease. Because that, like I said in a previous video and in previous, a little earlier here, an artist, they have the technical skill, but they're not the consumer. The consumer is the person that you need to be working for, not for yourself. So, Capcom listening to their consumers is a blessing. So good.
This means that, yes, Capcom has been well aware of the highly debated yellow paint, a form of signposting where the developer herds players into the direction they want them to go by marking surfaces and objects.
The first time I really actually noticed the yellow paint thing, and it was like built into the game mechanic and all that, was actually in the God of War game, not the original ones, obviously. A little bit the original ones, yeah, but the newer one where he has the boy walking around with him. And all the ledges that you were able to grapple up to had like that little Celtic design on them, and it turned out that, oh yeah, his wife there went through because she could see the future because she was a giant and had the future sight thing, and went through and put all these markings down so you'd know where to go. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fair. And then after that, I started becoming very hyper aware that why is there yellow paint everywhere? And why is it that every time I go to this yellow paint, it turns out that that's the direction I'm supposed to. All the boxes are covered in yellow paint. All the ledges that I can climb up have yellow paint on them. Who's going up these mountain surfaces in the middle of goddamn nowhere and putting yellow paint here? It's stupid. I hate it. And a lot of people started really talking about that. Capcom has been here. How can you tell? Yellow paint. And it's not just Capcom. So many games have been doing it too.
Largely sparked by Capcom's own titles, which have increasingly featured the paint, this topic has become so highly contested that developers around the world publicly
Game journalists when they are forced to play Resident Evil Requiem without yellow paint.
debate its merits, and even Silent Hill series producer Motoi Okamoto joked that Bloober Team's remake of 2 would not feature yellow paint. Fast forward to today, and I'm happy to say that Capcom has heard everyone loud and clear, and finally released their answer to these criticisms with last month's monstrous launch of Resident
Little piece where he pulls out a
Their
Hold on.
answer to these criticisms with last month.
It's dangerous to go alone. Take this. Holds out a banana to her. Banana.
Monstrous launch of Resident Evil Requiem. Today, I want to talk about light and color, about how Resident Evil Requiem masterfully uses both to guide its players through its most tense, shocking, and iconic moments.
Oh. Well, y'all blew up. Yeah, like in Far Cry, since that's closer to my expertise, there's just blue ropes everywhere you can climb. Like, hell yeah, the Eagles have put some blue rope here to let me know I can go there. Thanks. Yeah, pretty much. It's so weird. Just these things that are like, okay, this is obvious that you can grab. Why do we need this everywhere? Just show the player your character is able to vault over certain things, and then they should be able to like piece it together as they're going. They don't need to have a signal saying, go that way, stupid, go that way, stupid.
This is how Resident Evil Requiem fixed yellow paint. Like all great gaming franchises, Resident Evil has followed the basic tenets of color, theory, harmony, and context since the very beginning. Just as there's a reason the herbs that heal us are green, there's a reason series-long villain Umbrella is known for its logo segmented with red. Thanks to a combination of biologic and societal factors, we associate certain colors with feelings of wellness, caution, and fear. This is partially why yellow stands out so much in games. It's meant to act as a striking and attention-grabbing color that contrasts with the greens and reds commonly used to alert players of health or danger. But many gamers argue that it does its job too well.
Yeah, it really jumps out at you, like, almost to a comical degree.
Potentially breaking immersion when placed in areas that only serve to assist the player without consideration for how the markings fit into the environment. Others argue that signposting is both a necessity and a long-standing tradition, not just in Resident Evil, but the medium of gaming itself. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. Signposting has absolutely been around forever, but there are more
Or someone pissed there. If they're pissing paint.
diegetic or natural ways of guiding players than throwing a bucket of paint at a wall. Resident Evil Requiem has practically no yellow paint. The use of the color yellow remains, but gone are the garish splatters and X's used to denote interactable objects or paths the player is meant to follow. What replaces the yellow paint is a very simple pattern of green, yellow, and red, created by lights, stickers, and common objects,
which all make sense. The fragile stickers, the shipping labels. Even in real life, like, when you get a package delivered to you, usually those stickers are either in white or yellow, depending on what the product is. Yellow can go from warm to creepy real quick. You're right, you're not wrong. Danger tape, like, one of the things that I learned when I was working at a mill, like, if an object is stationary, like if it's a if it's a guardrail or something like that, paint it yellow. If it's a guardrail that can move because it's like a door or something like that, paint it orange. It tells you right away as soon as you look at it, that is safe to lean on. That is not. Because that thing can move. Here, they're all red. Oh, well, fair enough. But I mean, like, that shows a different kind of thing. Here, with these shipping labels, it makes sense for them to be yellow, and then you can be like, oh, I use my gamer knowledge. Yellow means break it. Let's go for it.
that are all presented in ways that are
green means it's live, red means it's not, or it's bad, or needs to be fixed.
immersive, but still eye-catching. Requiem trains us to identify its signposting very early by first introducing these colors in a totally normal context. The first use of yellow in the
She's got cat ears.
game is this caution tape Grace comes across. We know that police caution tape, at least here in the States, is yellow. This doesn't register as anything out of place, nor does its continued use across the path Grace follows to get to the Wrenwood Hotel. From there, the game does introduce a slightly more gamified use of yellow, but by putting the player into dark interiors, the game can start to use its amazing lighting for signposting as well. Once Grace finds herself in the Rhodes Hill Care
Yeah, just using the little bits of environment, because that's one of the nice things about being in the time period we are when it comes to media. We're able to use so much more textures and colors and lighting and shadows and objects and everything like that in the scenes in order to really guide players from one point to the other. No mods at all. Honestly, I don't think there's many mods in this sort of thing, because you are able to actually like unlock a lot of different outfits for your characters in Resident Evil Requiem from what I've seen.
Center, Requiem wastes no time in getting you to associate green lights with progression, yellow lights with things that need your attention, and red lights with non-functional obstacles blocking your progress. And you can see all of this in the initial chase with the girl. You'll end up in a room that has a green light.
The girl. Alas, another game added to the forever long wish list. Once I get a machine strong enough to play it. Fair enough. Well, soon enough. I mean, you can always get yourself a Steam Deck.
A yellow light, and a red light. The green light leads to safety away from the girl. The yellow light leads to an item, and the red light leads to a dead end. This might be basic, but it all works because it operates on real-world principles and therefore feels natural to us.
Yeah, and because it has that natural feeling, you don't even like put two and two together. You just naturally will be like, I'm going to avoid that red area. I'm going to go towards that green area. Hey, I want to know how many Big Daddy shirtless Leon mods I've seen. Oh, well, fair enough. Yeah. But free, what if I'm colorblind? I think there's actually a lot of colorblind modes in video games these days. Not too sure.
It's also how developers teach us without needing text prompts or obvious markings. The rest of the Care Center is Capcom's masterclass in guiding players with otherwise unassuming objects placed carefully to weave the player through the game's critical path. Did you notice how many lights there are in Rhodes Hill? It's kind of crazy. The player might not notice.
There are. I'm nitpicking. Fair enough. But free, what if we're super colorblind, like black and white? Look for hue shifts.
Because a building obviously needs lighting, but there are an absurd amount.
Sorry, not hue shifts, luminosity shifts. If it's lighter, go there. If it's not lighter, don't go there.
Of lamps. Requiem uses these lamps and sconces to covertly tell us where we need to go to make progress. One of my favorite examples is just past the dining hall. When you enter this door, there's a lamp at the end of the corridor. Once you get there, there's a door lit by an overhead light, and if you look at the stairs, there's another lamp in the corner. And when you reach that, there's a sconce at the top of the stairs. We don't question things that we feel.
Yeah, no, when I was watching Mark play this game, like, I didn't even notice that at all. Like, it just looked like normal lighting. It just felt normal. Didn't even notice that. What if I can't see color value, just black and white shading, just colors? I don't know, man. It doesn't work for everybody. I'm sorry.
Should belong. The yellow paint was so noticeable in games like Resident Evil 4 Remake because it just had no reason to be there. It raised questions that had no logical or in-universe answer. In fact, I used to joke that the same guy who paints everything yellow is the same longtime Capcom employee who removed bodies in the classic games.
You're just following this one dude that's just slapping paint everywhere, and afterwards he comes right behind you and picks up all the bodies and throws them into the ditch.
I think it's amazing that Requiem trusted its players enough to deduce the underlying importance of the colors and its lighting. By using everyday objects for its signposting, the game also didn't need to be very subtle. It could present huge glowing lights that the player knew they'd have to come back to or use at some point, and they weren't an eyesore because the object's placement just made sense among the scenery.
It all felt natural.
Requiem can do this because the first half of the game takes place in buildings at night. It's much easier to use lighting when your environment is abundant in shadows. And that leads us to Leon's more open-ended sections in Raccoon City. How do you do sign?
Oh, look, you were talking about bare-chested Leon mods? You turn around at the right time and see a guy dragging a body down the hall, but the bloody streak is yellow instead of red.
Posting over a much larger space during daytime with
Man, that is a detailed nipple. That is one detailed nipple right there.
faster action
Boom.
oriented combat. I mentioned Resident
The modders are down bad. The player base is down bad.
Evil 4 Remake, and though it had a fair amount of diegetic signposting, it was simultaneously the straw that broke the camel's back in the yellow paint discourse. It took me a while to understand the challenge that Capcom faced with 4, and how they solved it in Requiem. 4 has too much paint overall, but I think part of the reason why is because the environment limited Capcom's ability to do deliberate lighting. The green, yellow, red pattern of Requiem created by electronic indoor fixtures wouldn't make sense in the countryside of 4. Instead,
yeah, it would have made things a little difficult. I mean, what they probably could have done was just like had some slapdash like different colored wood or something like that in those areas, or maybe like some pebbles or something that kind of did some different representation. Found something other than just like a splash of yellow paint to be splattered all over the place. Maybe like boxes that you could break could all had like or barrels, I guess, all had like I don't know, a clove of garlic hanging off them or something like that. I don't know. Let's see here. God, if someone makes NSFW fan art of my IPs, I know that means I've just made it as a creative the ultimate milestone. You're not wrong.
what signposting there is that isn't paint is usually fire. 4 is also very fast-paced. In action horror, there is less value in subtly highlighting elements like ammo, health, and key items because they're more abundant and the environment itself is...
I think that the directional handholding is because developers are afraid that when people get lost to the point of being lost, they will close the game and just leave, which honestly happens when it's really bad. But also when you feel like your hand is held, then it's frustrating because you don't feel like you have done anything. Yeah, and that's still something that is popping up in like even in Resident Evil Requiem, like when they introduce one of the characters who is... The character is reading a book that has Braille. They have blanked out eyes, like their eyes are just completely covered white. And they don't react to when you walk into the room. They react when you actually like hit a glass wall to their room. Okay? The character, like the second you see this character, you're like, you're blind. But your character Grace, when she sees this character, is like, cataracts? Are you blind? Are you able to see? And they hammer in so many times. Can this child see? Can this child actually see anything? And blah 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 blah. Like, and it was very jarring, in my opinion, to see that a little bit, because it was just very pushy about the fact that this child is very blind. Hopefully they'll be able to fix that sort of writing in the future, but like, once again, they're just worried that people will miss subtlety. Another reason to love Kingdom Come Deliverance, Patriarch, Lion Roars, and Anthem plays.
is less important to the gameplay than in traditional survival horror. So how'd they marry all of this for Leon sections in Requiem that are more action horror than survival horror like Grace's? Well, the signposting in Leon's levels post Rhodes Hill is a bit more gamified, but the game shows a tremendous amount of restraint, and it makes an effort to blend its use of
Yeah, see? Blending that yellow in, and once again, a ladder painted yellow means that this is supposed to be a fixed fixture, like a solid fixture, right? So it makes sense for it to be yellow. At least it's not just a big splash of paint slapped against the ladder.
Color into the aesthetic of the now abandoned and desecrated ruins of Raccoon City through both visual and narrative design. Requiem does a good job of preparing the player to see things that wouldn't have existed in the Raccoon City of 1998. It tells us that the BSAA and other organizations have traveled into Raccoon City since the bomb dropped, so coming across modern containers and other items that don't look 30 years old is mentally accepted. On the color side of things, only certain ladders now are yellow, usually those in combat arenas where the player will need to quickly discern where to go. Otherwise, they're normal. Interactable vehicles have yellow latches, and all boxes contain yellow fragile sticks.
Okay, that is one thing that I was kind of annoyed with. Like, who's going around hanging these boxes from ledges? That's a little bit of a goofy mechanic. I don't know why they did that. They should have just had the things like on the ground or in more boxes. I don't know.
Stickers, but that was established at the start of the game, and they still don't look super out of place. The game has some yellow ropes you need to shoot too, but even those have some logical appearance. I get the feeling that
The giant Thomas the Train.
Capcom did not want to jeopardize the spectacle of being back in Raccoon City by doing too much overt signposting. For many, part of the appeal of Requiem is going back and seeing a post-apocalyptic version of it. You want to explore the city, and yellow paint could have ruined that because it makes it very obvious where the critical path lies. You can really see this in the RPD. That section is all about vibes. There's no combat, and Requiem seems aware that the
There was combat. There were a couple of zombies that just kind of like appeared every now and then. And a tofu.
player doesn't want to know where to go, because what they want to do is explore. Resident Evil's maps are characters in and of themselves, and stepping
Especially this one. Like, once again, I'm watching Markiplier's playthrough of this game. I don't have the time or attention span to dedicate to get this game, nor do I have the funds to really buy it. But like, just watching Mark go through this game and like relive everything that he did with this game was just so interesting and fun to see. It was like watching somebody like revisit their childhood. It was so good.
foot into the RPD again carries a nostalgia and emotional weight to it that Capcom handled perfectly by just letting us exist in the space without telling us where to go. The RPD would have been the least logical place to put too much new signposting, and not overindulging is just one of many ways Requiem shows that Capcom really did understand the
See, there was fighting here. It's just like two zombies.
complaints about the paint. Once Leon is back in a closed-off area, Requiem does fall back on using lighting and level design to help the player navigate. This is seen in the Raccoon City Underground and culminates when Leon and Grace arrive at the Ark. The Ark is Requiem showing off, frankly. The game continues its pattern of green, yellow, red, and it does so superbly that it even sees use in the game's cinematics. The signposting in the Ark is baked into the architecture. It's a high-tech facility.
The architecture. Ha! Sorry.
Not necessarily beholden to the visuals of everyday life. This affords it a unique stylization opportunity that it seizes immediately. It uses green and red again to signify progress or obstacle, but the doors themselves are the source of the lights, so you always know where to go or where you need to return to with a key item. Since wooden crates with fragile stickers would look out of place with the almost futuristic aesthetic of the Ark, the game introduces these
Yeah, those boxes, they fit so well. Like, they were just like these little crate futuristic crate looking things, but they had this like barely yellow tinge to them. I was like, that's an interesting way to do the yellow bit. I like that. It was the first time I've like fully noticed, but like the other ones with the boxes having the fragile stickers just kind of made sense.
2005 PC looking crates that glow yellow. It feels like the arc was streamlined because it's a space that both Grace and Leon have to traverse, and Capcom did a fantastic job making sure that the game delivered a consistent atmosphere across both playstyles. Where previous games that have attempted mixing action and survival horror have fallen a bit flat or seen clear break-off points for each style, Requiem tackled this problem by staging a level that both of its main characters could feasibly exist in and explore without it being too fast for survival horror or too slow for action horror. Since the arc has no obligation to
long, futuristic looking hallways in Resident Evil, that shit scares me. All I can think about is the movie and the hallway of lasers. I just kept on getting worse and worse and worse.
conventional lighting, Requiem goes all out with its use of color here, like in the fight with Hunk that takes place in a pungent red. With the Grim Reaper himself making a surprise appearance, this oppressive lighting fits him perfectly and tells us that he is a real threat. Lickers are also encased in a glossy crimson that stands out from the sterile white of the arc. But my favorite use of color in this part of the game are easily the yellows. Requiem's final cutscenes are drenched in yellow, and they give the finale a
I fear no man, but that thing looks at a hallway. Scares me.
a feeling of uncertainty. Red would have been too strong. I don't think Capcom wanted us to feel danger here. I think they wanted suspense. Will Leon survive? Who is Xeno? What is Elpis? I'd go as far as to say that this is the most nail-biting cutscene in a Resident Evil game. The franchise is obviously known for its ability to terrorize its players.
This scene was awful. I hated this scene so much. Not in like it was terrible, it was horribly done. No, it just made me so uncomfortable. I just did not like it. Which is the point. It's the point.
But I've never been more unsure of what was going to happen in a scene in these games.
I haven't seen the end. You better not be spoiling this shit, buddy.
Than this one. After Requiem answers the questions it spent the entire game crafting, the game drops us from suspenseful yellows to cool blues for the final boss fight. And then, at the very end, it does something fascinating. To instill a sense of hopelessness, it turns off the lights. No red, no yellow, no color.
Ooh, now that's mean.
I guess this is it then.
Until there is, and we know with certainty that both Leon and Grace will be alright, and that the game is coming to a close. It's incredible how much we can infer and how moved we can be by the use of light. Resident Evil Requiem marks a milestone for Capcom in its use of it to marionette the emotions of
Okay, he did spoil something a little bit there, but I think that's probably a situation that it's fair to spoil it. It's kind of an understandable situation.
its players, and to finally address one of the more common complaints about its recent games. Signposting isn't a bad thing. One's inability to recognize it doesn't mean
In case of fire, do not use elevator. Yellow all over it to say, hey, go this way, stupid.
it isn't present, and while I do share the sentiment that the yellow paint was too much, Requiem's solution presents a happy medium that has the advantage of also enhancing the game's presentation as it reaches for the player's attention. At the center of this debate has always been the increasing realism in game fidelity. With the more realistic games have become, there's been a greater need for signposting to decipher player items and progression in complex environments. Gone are the days when you could easily tell a 3D object apart from a pre-rendered background. There has also been a
there must be something that needs to be done with this with this clock here. Why do you say that? Because it's its own object and it's not just kind of baked into the texture.
push to make gaming more accessible, which has resulted in some of the rougher edges of the medium and Resident Evil's gameplay specifically being smoothed out to accommodate.
Man, that's a good shot. He is shooting way above their heads and somehow shooting them in the chest. And they're dogs. Their chest faces downwards. Damn, those are good shots.
A larger audience. Requiem, however, feels like a pivot in the right direction in more ways than just how it approaches signposting. For example, something I disliked about the newest remakes was them locking off ink ribbons to hardcore difficulty.
For hardcore fans of the series, saving requires an ink ribbon. No autosaves. Stronger enemies. That's kind of an annoyance.
And lo and behold, Requiem has a standard difficulty mode where you can use them. Capcom isn't perfect, no studio or publisher is, but they often listen, and their success over the past decade has largely come from understanding the...
I'm sorry, every time I see this guy, the only thing I hear is, X gonna give it to you, X. The character's name is Mr. X.
Audience for the games they create. And that's especially difficult because the wants of the player change over time. But because Capcom is so on top of gathering player feedback, their developers can have informed conversations about how to improve their games. The eradication of yellow paint is just the latest example of this, and I suspect this has also come as a result of the proliferation of ray tracing and other lighting technologies that are becoming standard across game engines.
Grace is such a scattered character, and the entire beginning premise of the game, like, she was planted in that scene, no questions asked. She is a barely functioning desk worker and was told, hey, we know you have some bad history specific with this location, but we were hoping you can go by yourself into this abandoned building where you are deathly afraid of because you had a traumatic experience happen to you in this place. Could you go there by yourself and go do a little bit of investigating? I know you're a desk worker, but can you go do that for us? That'd be great. We need an expert in the area and all that, and blah, blah, blah. Why is she going there? Why is she going by herself? This person can't even string together a sentence without stammering over herself. Why? This is stupid. And Grace should have been like, no, I'm going to go back to my desk. That's a funny joke you had, sir.
Requiem is one of the best looking games I've played in recent memory, and it proves that the best way to stylize realism has, and always will be, light and color.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
You're welcome, and thank you for this. These are your Patreon members. Guys, the link is in the description. It's in the chat, pinned comment, all that fun stuff. Make sure you go and check this fellow out, DX. Like, this was a very insightful video. They picked out things that I didn't at all notice while watching the game. Granted, I wasn't playing the game at the time, so I can understand that. But once again, go check this person out. Give them a like. They obviously deserve your attention. So, boom, boom, yeah. What? Hey, did you enjoy that? Was it funny? Well, come and check it out live over on twitch.tv/freeform_art. Make sure you put the _art. We have lots of fun there. We enjoy ourselves, and we want to see you over there. So come on and hang out. See you in a bit.